He thought his $3,000 suit and his position on the Forbes list gave him the right to treat her like human garbage. Harrison Sterling, the ruthlessly arrogant CEO of Sterling Corp., made one fatal mistake that night at New York's most exclusive restaurant. He assumed the quiet girl pouring his wine was a nobody. When he switched to Japanese to insult her intelligence and discuss a massive illegal merger, he didn't realize he was handing her the smoking gun that would end his career. Watch closely, because the takedown you are about to hear isn't just satisfying. It is a masterclass in revenge. The air inside L'Obsidian, Manhattan's most pretentiously dim-lit dining establishment, smelled of truffle oil, old money, and fear. Maria Thorne adjusted the collar of her starch-stiff uniform, her knuckles turning white as she gripped the tray. It was 8:15 p.m. on a Tuesday, the power hour. This was when the sharks of Wall Street swam up from the financial district to Fifth Avenue to feast on Wagyu beef and tear apart their competitors. Maria was 26, though the dark circles under her eyes made her look older. To the patrons of L'Obsidian, she was invisible. She was a pair of floating hands that refilled water glasses and replaced silverware. She was Miss, or Hey You, or mostly nothing at all. "Table 4 is yours, Maria. Don't mess this up," the maitre d', Verify Gustave, hissed, shoving a heavy leather-bound wine list into her hands. Gustave was a man who sweated anxiety. "It's Harrison Sterling." Maria felt a cold stone drop in her stomach. Everyone in New York knew Harrison Sterling. He was the CEO of Sterling Technologies, a man who had acquired his last 3 competitors by essentially bankrupting them through litigation. He was 45, handsome in a predatory way, and famously abusive to service staff. There was a rumor that he once threw a plate of risotto at a waiter because the temperature was 2 degrees off. "I've got it, Gustave," Maria said, her voice steady. It had to be. She needed this job. The medical bills for her mother's dialysis were piling up on her kitchen counter like snowdrifts. One bad night, one complaint, and she would be back to choosing between rent and medication. She approached table 4. Harrison Sterling sat there like a king on a throne, flanked by 2 other men in grey suits. One was his VP of operations, a nervous man named Peter. The other was a Japanese businessman, Mr. Kenji Sato, a key investor Sterling was trying to woo. "Gentlemen," Maria said softly, placing the wine list down with practiced grace. "Welcome to L'Obsidian. Can I start you with water?" Sterling cut her off without looking up from his phone. He waved his hand dismissively, as if swatting away a fly. "Sparkling. And bring the 82 Margot. Don't shake the bottle. If I see sediment, you're paying for it." "Of course, sir," Maria said. She retreated to the bar, her heart hammering. The 1982 Chateau Margaux cost more than she made in 6 months. When she returned, Sterling was in the middle of a heated monologue. He was loud, dominating the room. Other diners glanced over, annoyed but too intimidated to say anything. "Peter, you're soft. That's your problem," Sterling was sneering, stabbing the air with a breadstick. "We don't negotiate with these small tech startups. We crush them. We starve them out until they beg us to buy them for pennies." Maria began the ritual of opening the wine. It required surgical precision. She cut the foil, wiped the lip, and inserted the corkscrew. Her hands were steady, a result of years of discipline that belonged to a life she had left behind, a life before the scandal that ruined her father and forced her into hiding. Pop. The cork came out cleanly. She poured a tasting measure into Sterling's glass. He didn't taste it. He just stared at her hands. "You have a hangnail," Sterling announced loudly. The table went silent. Mr. Sato looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. "Excuse me, sir?" Maria asked, freezing. "Your thumb?" Sterling pointed, his face twisting in disgust. "There is a piece of skin hanging off. It's unhygienic. It's disgusting. Do you people not have manicures in whatever slum you crawl out of?" Maria felt the heat rise up her neck. "I apologize, sir. I washed my hands just moments ago. It's just dry skin from—" "I don't want to hear your life story," Sterling snapped. "Pour the wine, and try not to infect it." Maria bit the inside of her cheek until she tasted iron. "Do it for Mom," she told herself. "Just pour the wine." She moved to fill his glass. Just as the dark red liquid began to flow, Sterling slammed his fist on the table to emphasize a point he was making to Peter. "It's about dominance, Peter." The sudden vibration shook the table. The bottleneck clinked against the crystal glass. A single, tiny red drop splashed onto the pristine white tablecloth, about the size of a dime. Time seemed to stop. Sterling stared at the red spot. Then he looked at his cuff. The drop had missed his suit by inches, but the damage to his ego was immediate. "You incompetent cow," Sterling whispered, the volume of his voice dropping to a terrifyingly low register. "Sir, you hit the table!" Maria defended herself instinctively, terrified. "I was pouring and you— Are you blaming me?" Sterling stood up. He was tall, looming over her. The entire restaurant fell silent. "You clumsy, low-rent, uneducated idiot. That tablecloth is Egyptian cotton. Do you have any idea how much it costs to launder this?" "I will fetch a fresh cloth immediately," Maria said, taking a step back. "No," Sterling barked. He turned to Mr. Sato, his face flushing with anger. He needed to assert dominance. He needed to show the Japanese investor that he was an alpha, a man who tolerated no imperfections. And that was when he made the mistake. He assumed the woman in the apron, with the messy bun and the tired eyes, was exactly what she looked like, an uneducated American waitress. He turned his back to Maria, facing Mr. Sato, and switched languages. Sterling's Japanese was good, not native, but expensive. It was the Japanese of a man who had paid top-tier tutors for years, but it was arrogant Japanese. He looked at Mr. Sato and spoke rapidly, the guttural sounds flowing easily. "Kanojo wa gomida," Sterling said in Japanese, gesturing blindly behind him at Maria. "She is trash." Maria, who had turned to head toward the kitchen, stopped dead. Her back was to him, but her spine went rigid. Sterling continued, laughing a cold, cruel laugh. "Mait kure, Sato-san. Kore ga America jin no rodosha da. Kyoiku ga nai. No hashi. Look at this, Mr. Sato. This is the American worker. Uneducated. Brainless." Mr. Sato looked down at his plate, clearly embarrassed by the display. "Sterling-san, perhaps we should sit," he murmured in Japanese. But Sterling was on a roll. He enjoyed the power trip. He wanted to show Sato that he could abuse the locals and get away with it. It was a negotiation tactic, shock and awe. "Don't worry about her," Sterling continued in Japanese, his voice dripping with condescension. "She doesn't understand a word. She probably can't even read the menu she's holding. These people are like cattle. You feed them minimum wage and they moo." Maria turned around slowly. She didn't leave. She stood there, holding the wine bottle, watching him. Sterling didn't notice her gaze. He leaned in closer to Sato, dropping his voice, thinking he was wrapped in a blanket of linguistic secrecy. "Listen, Sato," Sterling said, his Japanese becoming conspiratorial. "The merger with Kaito Systems, it's a fraud. We're cooking the books for the Q3 report. Once we sign the deal on Friday, I'm dumping the stock. I need you to sign off on the Tokyo regulatory approval by tomorrow. If these idiots," he thumbed back toward Maria, "knew what I was doing, I'd be in prison. But they are too stupid to see past their own tips." The silence that followed was heavy. Mr. Sato's eyes went wide. He had just heard a confession of corporate fraud and insider trading, spoken freely because Sterling was so arrogant he thought he was the only one in the room with a passport. Sterling laughed again, turning back to Maria, switching back to English. He had a smirk on his face, feeling powerful. "Are you still standing there?" Sterling shouted in English. "I want your manager, now! I'm going to have you fired, and then I'm going to make sure you never work in this zip code again. Get out of my face." Maria didn't move. She didn't flinch. Instead, she gently placed the 1982 Chateau Margaux back on the table. The clink of the glass was the only sound in the room. She took a deep breath, smoothing her apron. Her posture changed. The slump of the tired waitress vanished, replaced by a rigid, military-grade poise. She lifted her chin, locking eyes with Harrison Sterling. And then she opened her mouth. "Sterling-sama," Maria began. The sound of the Japanese honorific coming from her mouth hit Sterling like a physical slap. His smirk faltered. She continued, her Japanese not just fluent, but perfect. It was keigo, the high formal language of business and diplomacy, but delivered with a razor-sharp, icy undertone that cut deeper than any shout. "Mazu, teburu wo tataita no wa anata desu," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the silent restaurant. "First, it was you who struck the table." Sterling's face went pale. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Maria stepped closer, her eyes blazing. She kept speaking in Japanese, her pronunciation flawless, far superior to his. "2500 doru no sutsu o kite itemo, hini wa kaimasen ne." Wearing a $2,500 suit does not buy you class, does it? Mr. Sato gasped audibly. He looked from Sterling to Maria, his eyes wide with shock and sudden respect. "You," Sterling stammered in English, panic setting in. "You speak." Maria wasn't done. She switched her gaze to Mr. Sato, bowing perfectly at the precise 45-degree angle required for respect in Japanese culture. "Sato-sama," she said softly to the investor. "Gubure o yorushi kudasai." Please forgive the rudeness. Then she dropped the nuclear bomb. She looked back at Sterling, her eyes cold as steel. "And regarding the Kaito Systems merger," she said in Japanese, ensuring every person within 20 feet could hear the clarity of her diction. "Cooking the books for the Q3 report and dumping the stock after the signature. That is a violation of the Securities and Exchange Act, Article 10b-5, and since Mr. Sato represents a Japanese firm, admitting that you need him to bypass Tokyo regulations constitutes conspiracy to commit international fraud." The room was deathly silent. You could hear a pin drop. Sterling looked like he was having a stroke. He was sweating profusely. He looked at Mr. Sato, then at his VP, then at the other diners who were now holding up their phones, recording. "Who are you?" Sterling whispered, his voice trembling. This wasn't a waitress. Waitresses didn't know Article 10b-5. Waitresses didn't speak the dialect of the Tokyo elite. Maria smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Me?" She switched back to English. "I'm just the trash that poured your wine. But before I was this," she untied her apron and let it drop to the floor. "I was the senior linguistic analyst for the Kurosawa Group in Tokyo, and before that, I studied international law at Columbia on a full ride." She leaned in close to Sterling, so close she could smell the fear radiating off him. "You really should be careful who you insult in this city, Harrison. The walls have ears, and sometimes the help has a PhD. She turned to Mr. Sato. "If I were you, Sato-san, I would not sign anything with this man. He just admitted to liquidating the assets you are about to invest in." Mr. Sato stood up abruptly, grabbing his briefcase. He looked at Sterling with pure disgust. "Kuzuyaro!" Sato spat the word out. "Scumbag!" and stormed out of the restaurant. Sterling stood amidst the ruins of his billion-dollar deal. He turned his rage toward Maria. His face turned a deep, violet shade of red. "You little bitch!" he screamed, lunging toward her. "You ruined everything! I'll kill you!" Gustav, the manager, finally rushed over, signaling the security guard. "Mr. Sterling, please!" "You're fired!" Sterling screamed, pointing a shaking finger at Maria. "And you!" He pointed at Gustav. "Fire her right now, or I buy this place and burn it to the ground!" Gustav looked at Maria. He looked at Sterling, the most powerful man in the room. Gustav was a coward. He did the math. "Maria," Gustav said quietly, avoiding her eyes. "Pack your things. Go." Maria looked at her boss. She nodded, expecting this. "With pleasure." She walked toward the kitchen doors, her head held high, leaving Harrison Sterling screaming obscenities into the void. But as she pushed through the swinging doors into the steam and noise of the kitchen, the adrenaline crashed. Her hand started to shake. She leaned against the stainless steel counter, gasping for breath. She had won the battle, but she knew men like Harrison Sterling. He wouldn't just let this go. She had humiliated him publicly. She had cost him a massive deal. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, an unknown number. She picked it up. "You think that was clever?" Sterling's voice hissed through the phone. He must have gotten her number from the reservation system or harassed Gustav for it. "You have no idea what you've just done. You're not just fired, Maria Thorne. By tomorrow morning, I'm going to make sure you cease to exist." Maria clicked the phone off. She grabbed her bag and ran out the back door into the alleyway. The cold New York air hit her face. She needed to move. She needed to disappear. Because Harrison Sterling was right about one thing. This wasn't over. It was war. Maria lived in a shoebox apartment in Astoria, Queens, a far cry from the glittering towers of Manhattan, where Harrison Sterling decided the fate of the economy. The building smelled of boiled cabbage and damp drywall. She stopped at the 24-hour pharmacy on the corner before going up. Her mother, Eleanor, needed her insulin. It was non-negotiable. "Hey, Maria," the pharmacist, a kind old man named Mr. Henderson, smiled at her. "The usual?" "Yes, please, Mr. Henderson." Maria swiped her debit card. She was shaking still, the adrenaline from the confrontation at L'Obsidian slowly turning into a cold dread. She had $400 in that account, enough for the medicine and maybe groceries for the week. Beep. Declined. Maria frowned. "Can you try it again? I just got paid 2 days ago." Mr. Henderson looked apologetic. He swiped it again. Beep. Declined. Contact issuer. "It says the account is frozen, Maria," he said softly. The blood drained from Maria's face. "Frozen? That's impossible." She pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. A red banner flashed across the screen. "Account locked due to suspicious activity. Pending legal review." Sterling. It had been less than an hour. She hadn't just been fired. Harrison Sterling had made a call. He likely knew the board members of her bank, or he had his legal team flag her for fraud immediately. It was a power move designed to suffocate her before she could even breathe. "Mr. Henderson," Maria's voice trembled. I don't have cash. Please. She needs this tonight." Mr. Henderson looked at the line forming behind her, then at Maria's desperate eyes. He slid the bag across the counter. "Pay me when you can. Go." Maria ran the 3 blocks to her apartment, clutching the bag like it was gold. Inside, the apartment was dark. The only light came from the television, flickering in the corner. Her mother, Eleanor, was asleep in the armchair, a blanket tucked around her frail legs. Eleanor had once been a vibrant history professor until the strokes took her mobility and the medical bills took everything else. Maria moved to the kitchen to get a glass of water, glancing at the TV screen. Breaking news. Assault at 5-star restaurant. CEO Harrison Sterling attacked by deranged staff member. Maria dropped the glass. It shattered on the linoleum, but she didn't hear it. She stared at the screen. A news anchor with perfect hair was reading a teleprompter. Tonight at L'Obsidian, tech mogul Harrison Sterling was the victim of an unprovoked verbal and physical assault by a server. Witnesses claim the woman, identified as Maria Thorne, threw a bottle of wine at the CEO and screamed racial slurs before fleeing the scene. Sterling Corp has released a statement promising to press full criminal charges. "Lies," Maria whispered, her hands trembling. "It's all lies." They weren't showing the video of her speaking Japanese. They weren't showing Sterling's insults. They were controlling the narrative. They were painting her as unstable, dangerous, and racist. The exact thing Sterling was. Her mother stirred in the chair. "Maria, is that you? What broke?" "Nothing, Mom," Maria choked out, rushing to clean up the glass. "Just a cup. Go back to sleep." Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call. It was a text. Sender. Unknown. "We know about the insulin. We know about the debt. We know about your father. If you speak to the press, the insulin stops coming. Disappear, or we make you disappear." Maria stared at the screen. They were watching her. She rushed to the window, peering through the blinds. Down on the street, a black SUV was parked under the streetlight. The engine was running. The windows were tinted dark. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her chest. She had thought she was just standing up to a bully. She had forgotten that in New York, bullies like Harrison Sterling didn't just fight with words. They fought with systems, they fought with money, and they fought with silence. She realized then that she couldn't stay here. The apartment wasn't safe. "Mom," Maria said, shaking Eleanor gently. "Mom, wake up. We have to go." "What? Maria, it's late. Go where?" "Aunt Sarah's, in Jersey. We have to go now." "But my dialysis is tomorrow." "We'll figure it out," Maria snapped, fear making her voice sharp. She instantly regretted it. "I'm sorry, Mom. Please, trust me. We are in danger." She began throwing clothes into a duffel bag. She grabbed the file box from under her bed, the one containing her degree, her passport, and the old legal documents from her father's case. Her father, Mark Thorne, had been a compliance officer for a major hedge fund 5 years ago. He had found irregularities. He tried to report them. 2 weeks later, he was framed for embezzlement, his reputation destroyed. He died of a heart attack 6 months later, leaving Maria with nothing but his debts and a burning hatred for corporate corruption. She had become a waitress to stay off the radar, to pay the bills without drawing attention to her last name. She had buried her potential to survive. And tonight, in one moment of pride, she had dug it all back up. She helped her mother into her coat. They moved toward the door. Maria opened it slowly. The hallway was empty. They made it to the elevator. Maria pressed the button for the basement, intending to go out the back service exit. As the doors slid open in the basement, a man was waiting. He was huge, wearing a dark leather jacket. He wasn't police. He was private security. A fixer. "Going somewhere, Miss Thorne?" the man rumbled. Maria shoved her mother back into the elevator and slammed the close door button. "Hey!" The man lunged forward, sticking his hand in the door. The metal doors bounced off his forearm. Maria didn't think. She reacted. She kicked him, hard, in the kneecap with her work shoe. He grunted, his leg buckling. She shoved his arm out and mashed the button for the roof. "Maria, who is that?" her mother cried. "Hold on, Mom." The elevator rose. Maria's mind was racing. The roof access connected to the adjacent building, a tenement walk-up. It was their only chance. Sterling wasn't waiting until morning to ruin her. He was sending his dogs tonight. The wind on the roof was biting. Maria supported her mother's weight as they navigated the gap between the buildings. It was a small jump, easy for Maria, but terrifying for a sick woman. "I can't do it, Maria," Eleanor wept. "You can, I've got you." They managed to cross, stumbling onto the tar paper roof of the next building. They went down the fire escape, the rusted metal groaning under their weight, and spilled out into the alleyway on the next block, away from the black SUV. Maria hailed a cab, using the last $40 of cash she had in her apron pocket. "Newark," she told the driver. "Just drive." An hour later, they were safe, temporarily, in her aunt's cramped guest room in New Jersey. Her mother was asleep, exhausted by the ordeal. Maria sat on the floor, her back against the wall, staring at her laptop. She connected to the neighbor's Wi-Fi, afraid to use her own data in case they were tracking her location. She logged on to Twitter. The hashtag #crazywaitress was trending. The video clips were everywhere, but they were edited. They showed only the part where she raised her voice. They cut out Sterling's Japanese insults. They cut out the part where he hit the table. Thousands of comments. Service workers are out of control. She attacked Harrison Sterling. She should be in jail. I heard she was drunk. Sterling's PR machine was a monster. It was rewriting reality in real time. But then, Maria saw something else. Buried deep in the replies, a user with the handle Truth Seekerne had posted a grainy video. It was from a different angle, taken by a diner at the back of the restaurant. The audio was muddy, but you could hear it. You could hear Sterling say, "Kanojo wa gomi da." She is trash. You could hear the arrogance. The caption read, "I was there." The CEO started it. He was speaking Japanese to mock her. She owned him. DM me if you want the raw file. Maria's heart leapt. A witness. She created a burner account and messaged Oh's Truth Seeker NY. "I'm the waitress. Please help me. They are destroying my life." 3 minutes later, a reply. "I know who you are, Maria, and I know who your father was. Meet me at the Battery Park Ferry Terminal, 6 a.m. Come alone. Don't bring your phone." Maria stared at the screen. "I know who your father was. Who was this person? A trap or a lifeline?" She had no choice. She couldn't fight Sterling with an empty bank account and a sick mother. She needed a weapon. At 5:45 a.m., Maria stood by the railing at Battery Park, looking out at the Statue of Liberty. The city was waking up, the grey dawn casting long shadows over the water. She wore a hoodie pulled low over her face. Maria Thorne. She spun around. Standing there wasn't a mysterious hacker kid, but a man in his 50s, wearing a rumpled trench coat and smoking a cheap cigarette. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "Who are you?" Maria asked, stepping back. "The name is Julian Vane," the man said, flicking his cigarette onto the pavement. "I used to work with your dad at the firm, before they killed him." Maria froze. "They said it was a heart attack." "Stress causes heart attacks," Julian grunted. "But fear causes stress, and Harrison Sterling is the one who put the fear in him." "Sterling?" Maria asked, confused. "My dad worked for a hedge fund, not a tech company." Julian laughed, a dry, barking sound. "Sterling owns the hedge fund, kid, through 3 shell companies in the Caymans. Your dad found the paper trail connecting Sterling's tech profits to illegal arms manufacturing deals in Southeast Asia. That's what he was about to blow the whistle on." Maria felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "So, last night wasn't an accident," Julian said. "Fate just finally decided to punch back. When you called out the Kaito Systems merger in that restaurant, you didn't just embarrass him, you scared the hell out of him. The Kaito merger is the final piece of the puzzle. It's how he launders the money from the arms deals. Julian pulled a USB drive from his pocket. I've been trying to nail Sterling for 5 years, but I'm just a washed-up journalist with a drinking problem. No one listens to me. But you? He looked her up and down. You're the viral sensation. You're the crazy waitress. Everyone is looking at you right now. You have the spotlight. A spotlight that is painting me as a villain, Maria argued. Exactly, Julian smiled grimly. Which means if you flip the script, the explosion will be twice as big. We don't just need to clear your name, Maria. We need to finish what your father started. How? Mr. Sato, Julian said, the Japanese investor. He left. He was furious. He's still in New York, Julian said. He's at the Pierre Hotel until noon today. If he signs that deal, Sterling wins and you go to jail for corporate espionage. Sterling will plant evidence on you. I guarantee it. But if Sato talks, if Sato goes on record confirming what Sterling said to him in Japanese, Sterling's stock tanks, the SEC investigates, the House of Cards falls. Sato won't talk to me, Maria said. I'm a waitress. No, Julian corrected her. You're the woman who speaks better keigo than he does. You shamed him. In Japanese culture, honor is everything. You saved him from committing a crime. He owes you. Julian checked his watch. You have 4 hours before Sato leaves for the airport. Sterling security is undoubtedly watching the hotel. It's a fortress. Maria looked at the skyline. She thought of her mother hiding in New Jersey. She thought of the man in the elevator. She thought of her father, silenced by the same machine that was now trying to crush her. She tightened her ponytail. The fear was still there, but it was being overtaken by a cold, calculating anger. I need a way in, Maria said. Julian grinned. I hoped you'd say that. I have a friend in catering at the Pierre, but getting you in is the easy part. Getting to the penthouse suite past Sterling's goons? That's on you. Let's go, Maria said. The Pierre Hotel rose like a white stone fortress against the mid-morning sky. To the average New Yorker, it was a symbol of elegance. To Maria, it was a dungeon where the key to her freedom was being held captive. Julian drove a battered van marked Delaney's Floral Arrangements to the service entrance. Okay, listen close, Julian said, killing the engine. My contact, Benny, left a keycard inside the 3rd flower vase on the loading dock. It gets you into the service elevator, but it won't get you onto the penthouse floor. That requires a specific security fob. So how do I get up there? Maria asked, pulling a grey housekeeping tunic over her head. She had tied her hair back tight, scrubbing her face of any makeup. She looked invisible again. Room service, Julian said. Sterling has a sweet tooth. He orders fresh fruit and pastries every morning at 10 a.m. The cart goes up in 10 minutes. You need to be on that elevator when the cart goes in. Maria took a deep breath. If I don't come back down... Julian looked at her grimly. Then I leak everything I have on the blog. It won't save you, but it'll burn him. Good luck, kid. Maria slipped out of the van. She moved with the fluid invisibility she had perfected over 4 years of waiting tables. She found the vase, retrieved the keycard, and slipped into the service corridor. The air smelled of laundry detergent and expensive coffee. She navigated the hallways, dodging busy staff, until she found the main service elevator bank. A young man was pushing a silver cart covered in a white cloth. A bottle of champagne and a tiered platter of pastries sat on top. Hold the door, Maria called out softly, jogging up to him. The boy looked at her. I haven't seen you before. I'm new. Housekeeping supervisor sent me. VIP guest requested extra towels in the suite. She held up a stack of fluffy white towels she had swiped from a laundry cart. The boy shrugged. Whatever. It's the penthouse. Don't look Mr. Sterling in the eye. He's in a mood. The elevator ride was agonizingly slow. Maria's heart hammered against her ribs. Ding. The doors opened to the penthouse foyer. It wasn't a hallway. It was a private landing with marble floors, and standing right there, arms crossed, was the man from the elevator, the fixer. He was talking to a headset. "Yeah, we're clear here. No sign of the girl." Maria froze behind the room service cart. If he saw her face, it was over. "Room service," the boy announced nervously. The fixer looked at the cart. Then he looked at Maria, who was keeping her head down, clutching the towels. "Who's she?" The fixer grunted, stepping forward. "Towels," Maria mumbled, altering her voice to sound raspy. "For Mr. Sato." The fixer squinted. He took a step closer, his hand reaching out to lift her chin. "Look at me." Maria's muscles coiled. She was ready to fight, but she knew she'd lose. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors of the suite swung open. Two men in dark suits stepped out. Mr. Sato's personal security. They were Japanese. They looked at the scene. The American brute harassing a small woman. "Yamero," one of the Japanese guards said sharply. "Stop it." The fixer looked at them. "I'm checking staff. Boss's orders." "Sato-sama is waiting for his tea," the guard said in heavily accented English. "Let them pass." The fixer glared at the Japanese guards. There was tension there. Two rival security teams forced to work together. He backed off, not wanting a diplomatic incident. "Go!" he snapped. Maria exhaled, keeping her head down, and followed the cart into the suite. The suite was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Harrison Sterling was nowhere to be seen, probably in the master bedroom on a conference call. Mr. Sato was sitting on a velvet sofa, staring at a tablet. He looked tired. The room service boy set up the table and left quickly. Maria lingered, placing the towels on a side chair. As soon as the door clicked shut, leaving only Maria and Mr. Sato in the main room, with his guards by the door, she made her move. She turned to him and bowed deep and low. "Sato-sama," she whispered. Kenji Sato jumped, dropping his tablet. He stared at the housekeeper. "You?" he hissed in English. "Are you insane? Sterling has police looking for you. He says you are dangerous." "I am not dangerous, Sato-san," Maria said, switching to her impeccable Japanese. "I am desperate, and I am the only person in this room telling you the truth." "Get out!" Sato stood up, his hand reaching for the phone. "I should call security." "If you sign that deal today," Maria said quickly, remaining in her bow, "you will be indicted by the American SEC and the Tokyo Financial Bureau within 3 months. My father was Mark Thorne. Do you know that name?" Sato froze. His hand hovered over the phone. "Thorne?" Sato repeated slowly. "The compliance officer who died?" "He didn't just die," Maria said, rising to meet his eyes. "He was silenced. He found the link between Sterling Corp and the illegal arms manufacturing in Southeast Asia. That is where the money comes from, Sato-san. Not software. Weapons. Dirty weapons sold to embargoed nations." Sato's face went pale. He sank back onto the sofa. "That is a heavy accusation." "Why do you think Sterling insulted me in Japanese?" Maria pressed, walking closer. "Because he thinks he is untouchable. He thinks you are a fool who will sign the papers to save your quarterly earnings. He told you to your face that he was cooking the books." "He was drunk," Sato said weakly. "It was bluster." "Was it?" Maria pulled the USB drive Julian had given her from her pocket. "This drive contains the files my father hid before he died. It proves the money laundering. If you sign the merger, your company's assets will be used to cover up these crimes. When the truth comes out, and it will, Sterling will blame you. He will say it was your idea. He will let you take the fall." Sato stared at the small silver drive. He was a proud man, a man of tradition, but he was also a cautious businessman. The shame of being involved in an arms scandal would lead to his resignation, perhaps even his suicide. "Why bring this to me?" Sato asked quietly. "Why not the police?" "Sterling owns the police," Maria said, "and the media thinks I'm a crazy waitress who attacks CEOs. I have no voice. But you are Kenji Sato. If you speak, the world listens." Sato looked at the door where Sterling was. He looked back at Maria. "He expects me to sign at the press conference at 1 p.m., Sato said. "It is a live broadcast, a celebration of the union between East and West." A slow, dangerous idea began to form in Maria's mind. "A live broadcast?" she asked. "Yes, all the major networks." Maria smiled, and for the first time in 24 hours, it wasn't a smile of fear. It was a smile of a predator who had just found the trap. "Sato-sama," she said softly, "how would you like to restore your honor and destroy a monster, all without lifting a finger?" 12:55 p.m. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was packed. Cameras from CNN, Fox Business, and Bloomberg were set up in a semicircle around a podium draped in Sterling Corp banners. Harrison Sterling stood backstage, checking his reflection in a mirror. He looked perfect. The bruising on his ego from the night before had been covered up with expensive foundation and even more expensive arrogance. "Is the girl found?" Sterling asked Peter, his VP, without turning around. "Not yet," Peter said, sweating. "She vanished. But we have eyes on her mother's apartment." "She'll turn up." "It doesn't matter." Sterling adjusted his tie. "After today, I'll be a billionaire 3 times over. I'll buy the network that airs her sob story and delete it." He walked out onto the stage. The applause was polite, driven by the attendees' desire to be close to power. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sterling boomed into the microphone, flashing his $1 million smile. "Thank you for coming. Today marks a historic moment. Sterling Technologies is not just acquiring a company. We are acquiring a future. A partnership with Kaito Systems represents the pinnacle of innovation." He gestured to the side of the stage. "Please welcome my partner and friend, Mr. Kenji Sato." Sato walked out. He wore a dark suit, his face unreadable. He carried a leather portfolio. He shook Sterling's hand. The cameras flashed like lightning. "Thank you, Harrison," Sato said into the mic. His English was steady. "It is interesting to be here." Sterling laughed, patting him on the back. "A man of few words. Let's get to the signing, shall we?" A large mahogany table had been set up center stage. 2 leather-bound contracts sat waiting. A golden pen lay between them. Sterling sat down, unbuttoning his jacket. He picked up the pen. "With this signature, we initiate the transfer of assets and full operational control." He signed with a flourish. He looked at Sato. "Your turn, Kenji." Sato sat down. He picked up the pen. He hovered it over the paper. The room held its breath. Then Sato set the pen down. "Actually, Harrison," Sato said, his voice amplified through the speakers, "before I sign, there is a clause I would like to clarify. Regarding the trash." Sterling's smile froze. "Excuse me?" "The trash," Sato repeated. "The American workers, the uneducated cattle. That is what you called them, yes?" A murmur went through the crowd. Peter, standing off to the side, started talking frantically into his headset. "Kenji, I think we have a translation error," Sterling said through gritted teeth, his eyes darting to the cameras. "Let's discuss this backstage." "No," Sato said calmly. "I think we should discuss it now. In fact, I have brought a translator to ensure there are no more misunderstandings." Sato gestured to the wings of the stage. Sterling looked over, confused. Maria Thorne walked out. She wasn't wearing a waitress uniform. She wasn't wearing a housekeeper's tunic. She was wearing a sharp, black blazer that Sato's assistant had procured for her in the last hour. She looked like a CEO. She looked like an executioner. The crowd gasped. The reporters recognized her instantly. "That's the waitress," someone shouted. "The one from the video." Sterling stood up, knocking his chair over. "Security, get her off the stage. She's dangerous." The fixer and 2 other guards rushed from the sides, but Sato's 4 security guards stepped in front of them, forming a human wall around Maria and Sato. "Sit down, Harrison," Sato commanded. The authority in his voice was absolute. "This is a setup," Sterling screamed, his face turning purple. "Cut the feed. Turn off the cameras." "The cameras stay on." Maria stepped up to the podium. She looked directly into the lens of the center camera. "My name is Maria Thorne," she said, her voice clear and steady. "Yesterday, Harrison Sterling fired me for spilling a drop of wine. But before he did, he thought it would be funny to speak Japanese to Mr. Sato, assuming I was too stupid to understand." She turned to Sterling. "You wanted to know who I was, Harrison? I am the daughter of Mark Thorne, the man you framed and killed to cover up your arms dealing." "Liar!" Sterling lunged at her, but a Japanese guard shoved him back into his chair. "Prove it!" Sterling shrieked. "You have nothing. You're a disgruntled waitress." "I don't need to prove it," Maria said calmly. "You already did." She nodded to the AV booth at the back of the room. Julian Vane was standing there. He gave a thumbs up and pressed a button. Huge screens behind the stage flickered to life. It wasn't a recording of the restaurant. It was a recording from 10 minutes ago. It was audio recorded in the green room backstage, where Sterling had been talking to Peter before coming out. Sato had planted a bug on his own lapel. Sterling's voice, over speakers. "Once Sato signs, dump the stock immediately. If the SEC asks about the manufacturing plants in Laos, we shred the files, just like we did with Thorne. I don't care if Sato goes down for it. The Japanese are polite. He'll resign quietly." The audio echoed through the ballroom. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of a career dying. Sterling stared at the speakers, his mouth open. He looked at the crowd. Every single person was looking at him with horror. The journalists were typing furiously on their phones. Maria leaned into the microphone. "Kanojo wa gomi da." She repeated his insult from the night before. "She is trash." She looked him in the eye. "Looks like the trash just took you out." Sato stood up. He picked up the unsigned contract and ripped it in half. "The deal is off," Sato said. Pandemonium erupted. Reporters rushed the stage. Flashbulbs blinded them. "Mr. Sterling, is it true about the arms dealing? Did you order the death of Mark Thorne? Maria! Maria! Over here!" Sterling looked around like a trapped rat. He saw the police entering from the back of the ballroom. Real NYPD officers, not his private security. Julian had sent the evidence to the FBI an hour ago. Sterling ran. He shoved Peter out of the way and bolted for the side exit. "He's running!" someone shouted. Maria didn't run. She stood center stage, watching him go. She knew he wouldn't get far. But as the chaos swirled around her, she felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Sato. "You did well, Maria-san," he said quietly. "It's not over," Maria said, watching the police chase Sterling into the corridor. "Men like him, they always have one last card to play." And she was right. Sterling wasn't running for the exit. He was running for the server room. If he could trigger the remote wipe on the main servers, the physical evidence of the arms deals, the detailed schematics and bank transfers would vanish. The audio was bad, but without the documents, a good lawyer could keep him out of prison. Maria realized it instantly. "The servers," she whispered. She kicked off her heels. "Where are you going?" Sato shouted. "To finish it," she yelled back, sprinting off the stage, barefoot, chasing the billionaire into the bowels of the hotel. The service corridors of the hotel were a labyrinth of concrete and fluorescent lights. Maria's bare feet slapped against the cold floor as she sprinted, ignoring the pain in her arches. She knew where Sterling was going. The hotel hosted Sterling's private dedicated server for the event, a portable, military-grade rig set up in the security sub-basement to handle the encrypted transfer of billions of dollars. If he physically accessed that terminal, he could initiate a scorched earth protocol. It would magnetize the drives, the evidence of the arms dealing, the money laundering, the order to silence her father. It would all be reduced to static. She rounded a corner and saw the heavy steel door of the server room ajar. She burst inside. The room was freezing, hummed with the sound of cooling fans. In the center, bathed in the blue glow of the monitors, stood Harrison Sterling. His jacket was gone, his shirt soaked in sweat. He was typing furiously on a keyboard, his eyes manic. "It's over, Harrison," Maria shouted, her voice echoing off the metal racks. Sterling didn't look up. "It's over when I say it's over. Do you think I built this empire by letting rules stop me? I am a god in this city." Clack, clack, clack. He hit the keys with violent force. "System purge initiated," a robotic voice announced from the speakers. "Enter admin key to confirm." Sterling fumbled for a heavy, encrypted USB key on his keychain. Maria lunged. She didn't aim for him. She aimed for the keychain. She tackled him from the side, the momentum sending them both crashing into a rack of blinking routers. Sterling roared, throwing her off with surprising strength. He was fueled by the desperate, cornered rage of a narcissist losing his world. He kicked out, catching Maria in the ribs. She gasped, curling into a ball. The wind knocked out of her. "You nothing!" Sterling screamed, standing over her. He held the key up like a trophy. "You serve food. That is all you are. You think you can outsmart me? I own the network." He turned back to the console and jammed the key into the slot. "Delete," he hissed, slamming his thumb onto the enter key. "Delete everything." The screen flashed red. A progress bar appeared. "Deleting assets." 0%. Sterling laughed, a high, breathless sound. "See, it's gone. The FBI will find nothing but empty drives, and without evidence, I'll be out on bail by dinner. I'll sue you for assault. I'll bury you, Maria." Maria rolled onto her back, clutching her side. She looked up at the screen. Then she started to laugh. It started as a wheeze, then grew into a full, genuine laugh. Sterling spun around, his face twisting. "Why are you laughing? You lost." "Look at the screen, Harrison," Maria wheezed, pointing a shaking finger. Sterling whipped his head back to the monitor. "Deleting assets." 0% error. Admin privileges revoked. System lockdown initiated by user K. Sato. "What?" Sterling slammed the keyboard. "No, that's impossible. It's my system." "It was your system," Maria said, pulling herself up to a sitting position. "Until 5 minutes ago. When Sato-san ripped up the contract, his security team didn't just stand there. They remotely bridged the connection. Mr. Sato is the majority shareholder of the acquiring firm. Technically, for the duration of the merger talks, he has root access." Sterling stared at the screen as the text changed. "Uploading data to SX secure server. 10%, 20%. "He's not deleting it," Maria whispered, watching the color drain from Sterling's face. "He's backing it up directly to the FBI." Sterling clawed at the machine, trying to rip the cords out of the wall. Sparks flew. The monitor flickered, but the upload bar kept moving on the backup screen. 50%. "Stop it! Stop it!" Sterling screamed, pounding the metal casing with his fists until his knuckles bled. "It's too late," came a voice from the doorway. Sterling froze. Standing there was Detective Miller of the NYPD, gun drawn. Behind him were 2 FBI agents and a breathless Julian Vane. "Harrison Sterling," Detective Miller shouted. "Step away from the terminal, hands in the air." Sterling slumped against the server rack. He looked at the upload bar. Upload complete. It was done. The proof of illegal arms manufacturing, the shell companies, the payments to the hitman who caused Mark Thorne's heart attack. It was all in the hands of the federal government. Sterling looked at Maria. His eyes were empty. The arrogance was finally gone, replaced by the hollow look of a man who realized he was mortal. "You're just a waitress," he whispered, as if trying to convince himself one last time. Maria stood up. She straightened her blazer. She winced from the pain in her ribs, but she stood tall. "I am the woman who just ended you," she said softly. The officers moved in. They grabbed Sterling, forcing his hands behind his back. The click of the handcuffs was the sweetest sound Maria had ever heard. As they dragged him out, he didn't scream. He didn't fight. He just stared at the floor, broken. Julian walked over to Maria. He put a hand on her shoulder. "You okay, kid?" Maria looked at the empty doorway where the monster had been taken away. She thought of her father. She thought of the years of fear, the hiding, the shame. "Yeah," Maria said, wiping a smudge of dirt from her cheek. "I think I'm finally off the clock." 6 months later. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the corner office on the 40th floor of the Sato Global Building in Midtown Manhattan. Maria Thorne sat at the mahogany desk, reviewing the quarterly compliance reports. The nameplate on her desk read, "Maria Thorne, VP of International Ethics and Compliance." She picked up her coffee, not poured by a trembling hand, but brewed by her own machine. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her mother. "Doctors say the new kidney treatment is working perfectly. I'm walking in the park today. Love you." Maria smiled. With the whistleblower reward money from the SEC and her new salary, the debts were gone. Her mother was safe. They had a nice apartment in Brooklyn with a garden. There was a knock on the door. "Come in," Maria called out. Kenji Sato entered. He looked relaxed, younger than he had 6 months ago. Sterling Corp had been dismantled, its assets bought up by ethical firms. Sato had emerged as a hero for exposing the fraud. "Maria-san," Sato bowed slightly. "We have a meeting with the new investors in 10 minutes. Are you ready?" "Almost," Maria said. "Just finishing the risk assessment." Sato paused. "By the way, I have a reservation tonight. A new restaurant opened downtown. Very exclusive. I was hoping you would join me and the team to celebrate the quarter." Maria raised an eyebrow. "What kind of restaurant?" "French." Sato smiled. "Very fancy. They say the wine list is incredible." Maria laughed. She stood up, grabbing her files. "I'd love to," she said. "But warn them." She walked to the door, stopping to look back at Sato, with a playful glint in her eye. "If the service is bad, I might just have to have a word with the manager." In Japanese. Sato chuckled. "Of course, Thorne-sama." They walked out of the office together, leaving the ghosts of the past behind them. Maria Thorne was no longer serving the table. She was running it. And that is how Harrison Sterling, a man who thought he ruled the world, lost everything because he underestimated the person pouring his wine. He made the fatal mistake of judging someone's worth by their uniform, forgetting that dignity and intelligence don't come with a price tag. Maria didn't just get revenge. She got justice for her father and reclaimed her life, proving that sometimes the quietest people in the room are the ones you should fear the most. What did you think of Maria's revenge? Have you ever been in a situation where someone underestimated you because of your job or how you looked? I want to hear your stories in the comments below. Let's expose the Harrison Sterlings of the world together. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching, and remember, be kind to everyone, because you never know who you're really talking to. See you in the next one.